Alex, just being removed now from it from a little bit, being able to go back and watch film, what are some of the biggest takeaways for you guys as a group from that game last night?
Yeah, I think just doubling down on the stuff that we think has been good for us through the first couple games. A lot of questions game by game just about what's happening and what's going on. But like I feel like the stuff that we've prepared with has been good, and we've bled for a large majority of all the games. So I don't think there's anything that we're gonna just like have an epiphany on that's like this is the game changer. It's just about being great at the stuff that we've talked about doing. And I think we're heading in the right direction in that. Like obviously, a couple shots going in will help, but you don't want to leave it up to chance of the ball going in. So just doubling down on being great spacing, playing with pace. Taking care of the paint, making it hard on their main guys.
Is there concern about frustration setting in?
No, I don't think so. It's the playoffs. Nobody just wins 16 games and gets to hold the trophy. Even the best teams ever, lost one or two along the way. So, no concerns over frustration, playing a factor just because you don't have time for it. Like if you carry frustration over into the next game, you've probably already lost. So, today's just about wiping that slate clean. Obviously, like we talked about, doubling down on the stuff that I think we know works. And you have to be optimistic. You have to be, arrogantly optimistic if you want to have a chance to win a championship. Just because if you don't have that belief, then you probably won't get there.
Alex, I believe you guys to the series on plus 41 in regulation, and by most people's knowledge, this is probably Jokic's early series to this point in his career, though. To have so many things go right and still have the series be decided by like a handful of possessions, like how difficult is that to sit with, and how is it sort of giving you guys perspective of the margin of error in the playoffs?
Yeah, I mean, anytime you play great players and great teams, it's going to be fine margins. Obviously, we talk about not letting frustration, creep into the next game, but those are human emotions. You feel that after the game. You sit there and think about, what one play here, one play there, what could have been different to where you win by one. Every player on a losing team goes through their plays in that game and thinks about it. But being a pro is getting to the next one. And if you can't move on and get to the next one, you don't have any chance. So I think for us, it's just, like I said multiple times already, it's like the stuff we're doing is working. Like Jokic is having a tough time. Credit to our bigs. Those three guys are making it really hard on him because that's not an easy task to do. Lou and Kaysen are doing a phenomenal job with Murray too. And at the end of the day, you just got to find ways to win. Like a lot of times in sports, it doesn't come down to the numbers games. Like you see all these anomalies of teams that win with random statistics. It's like it's sports. You got to go out there and win the game. And a lot of times that comes down to just like really, really wanting it and having a belief and a faith that you're going to do it. And I think that this team has that.
But if Shea, like if your idea was to get Shea guarded by Jamal, like to get that switch to Allison, is like it felt like you got what you wanted in terms of Dub, like what he was trying to get throughout the fourth quarter, like this. What sort of made it so difficult to get him favorable switches?
I thought he had a pretty good couple of possessions for us late in the game, just playing off of Shea. He played downhill, got fouled on one of them. Another one, he got to a nice cutback midi that he's kind of good at. I don't know if there's too much direct struggle for him that was on them, where it was more on the other guys to to set harder screens, hold the screens a little longer, space earlier, move a little earlier, just to create those windows for them to get into. So I thought they did a pretty good job of attacking the gaps that they had and being aggressive. Obviously, I think the guys around him can probably do a better job of creating a little more space for him.
Alex, these couple of losses obviously were down the wire type of games. That's a team that's got their core from the championship squad a couple of years ago. How much does experience matter, or how much do you think experience has been a factor in those late game situations?
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could credit a little bit to that, but I think for the most part this year, we obviously haven't done it to the finals and won a championship like they have, but we've had close games this year on the road against great teams that we've we've won and we've executed against. We did it here in Denver early in the season. Obviously, it's a long time ago, but I think it just comes down to us just having a championship level of focus. And I've said this multiple times. Like, I was excited to play Denver because I knew that they were gonna bring greatness out of us. Like, we weren't, like, it's no disrespect to Memphis, but like, we were gonna win that series, especially once Jaw went out, just based off of talent level. But Denver is a smart team. They're experienced team, like you said. Like, I know that this is the challenge that's going to push us to be great, and I think we're seeing that. And I think I'm a firm believer that we're going to get over that hump and find ways to win those. And we got another one tomorrow to try and do it.
Al, does losing game 3 sting more, considering just the way that overtime played out, or is it more like a momentum thing where you don't want to put yourself in that situation again late in the fourth quarter?
Me personally, 1 hurt a lot more than 3. But you like I said, you got to keep moving on and can get to the next one. Fine margins. We talked about that. Fine margins. I can't remember the play before they hit the transition 3, but it was clustered in the paint. They got a rebound. We don't match in transition. They get a corner 3, and one of the keys for them is keeping them out of transition, and we know that. And it's like what I've said is, there's nothing magical. There's no special formula for what to do. Like, we know the answers to the test. It's just about going out there and putting them on the paper.
Coach, we were just talking to Alex, and he said, the importance for you guys is doubling down on the things that have worked well for you guys throughout the series. And even in last night's game, what are some of those things that are top of mind and things you want to double down on?
Yeah, what we try to do after all the games, but certainly after last night's game, after watching it, is show controllable fundamentals that we could do better. We did a lot of things well in the game. There's a reason the game was so competitive. But in the playoffs, at this stage of the season, your margin for error is thinner, and you got to be like that much sharper on simple things. But we're late to a help on a play. We're late to spacing on another play. We have a poor screening relationship on another play. It's like that kind of stuff that we've been working on all year, the muscle we've built all year. That's the stuff we have to be really good at. There's schematic things they're doing, schematic things we're doing. We'll address that as well, but we always try to return to the things that are most controllable, that we've built through time, because that gives us confidence that we can improve.
The shot selection in the fourth and in overtime, do you feel differently about it the day after? Do you have a stronger opinion on it? Like, how do you feel?
My there were some ones that we had some ugly possessions, calling it like it is, where our execution wasn't where it needed to be. Wasn't where it needed to be was a reflection of fundamentals. It wasn't anything like tricky that they were doing or anything that we needed to reinvent. We just needed to be sharper with some fundamental stuff. At that point in the game, you're going to have some tough shots. You're going to have some that are semi-contested that we've seen go in quite a bit. So they didn't go in last night. But I thought our process could have been better, and that's really all we can control. I trust the guys to make the right plays. They trust each other to make the right plays. Some of the shots were a reflection of execution that was less than perfect. And that's really what we have to address, and then trust that the shots will be cleaner and that they'll go in and that sort of stuff.
With Shay specifically, obviously, you were saying that he's had big moments like that, and if he would have made those shots, we wouldn't be talking about it. And he said,
is he wrong?
And he said in those moments when the game slows down, you come down with your best player making shots and making plays, and he didn't do a good enough job of that. Like, do you feel the same way? And how have you sensed that he sort of grappled with what happened last night?
Well, he's the man at that. I never worry about him there. He's about as consistent day to day, regardless of outcome, as anybody. And I think that's why he improves so much, because he has a ton of success and he continues to keep his head down. And when he fails, he takes it on the chin. He looks in the mirror. He improves from that as well, but he doesn't get too high or low ever. And then I thought, like I said, there's some process stuff on the offensive end of the floor where we had some possessions that were sloppy, not many, but a couple. We had some that were like 7 out of 10, and at this point in the season against a defense that is 8 out of 10, 7 out of 10 is not good enough. So we just have to make some improvements there. He got caught in some situations where I thought he took some tough ones. We're used to seeing those go in because he's a great player. He made some great plays as well. But there's other things we can improve on. We're not just going to chalk it up to like shot making.
Mark, what do you mean when you're talking about the process offensively in those late tight situations? Obviously, game one and then again last night.
Yeah, I think first of all, last night, what was different from game one, we had like 3 plays with a lead in game one where we were like not organized, which that's like really, really bad, like that's me, like I have to get us organized. I have to get us in stuff that's familiar enough and that the guys can get to. They're not trying to do that. So last night we were far more organized. Like we didn't have any plays where we probably had one in overtime where we were just like not where we were supposed to be. But other than that, we got to spots. Then it just comes down to the execution of your offense, it's simple stuff. It's spacing, it's the screening relationships, it's spacing out of the screens, and then it's making the right play, when you have the advantages. And so that could all be a little bit better. It wasn't a 0 out of 10. Like I said, it's probably a 6 or a 7. Their defense was really good last night, and so was ours, and so offense wasn't easy for anybody last night, but there were controllable things that we just looked at that hopefully can loosen us up a little bit in those situations and in the floor game.
Talking about getting to advantages, especially late in the games, to put down against their Mario and Ghost shoots. But for you guys, it hasn't seemed as easy to get to those advantages. Is there something that you feel like they're going to try to keep you guys from finding those advantages late in the games?
I mean, I think we're both doing that to each other. I think at the end of the day, like last night is an example, like nothing was easy for either team last night. The score was 102-102 at the end of regulation for a reason. Both defenses were really amped up. Both offenses had to earn everything they got. It was a really, really tough slog, that game was. And it came down to the margins, really, really thin margins of execution on both ends of the floor. It was even after regulation, and then they were better in overtime. But I didn't think, I don't think they've operated with any more ease than we have in the series. I just think in last night's game, they made a couple more plays.
You mentioned fundamentals earlier. One that Denver seems to have had in late in these games is like spacing, sprinting the floor, getting to the corner. Gordon's done that a couple times. What's a challenge for you all in terms of getting your transition defense coordinated and matched late in these games?
Yeah, I mean, that one was a tough one. That was a really tough play because we had a lead. We got a shot on goal. That's a situation that you like to get back in. We allowed them to outnumber us on that play, and he made us pay. And that was, the mark of last night's game. I mean, like I said after the game, I thought we manufactured a lot of good stuff last night, between the amount of shots we took compared to them. We were about even on the free throw line in terms of attempts. We rebounded the ball really well on both ends of the floor. We dominated the paint in terms of scoring. They made more shots. They generated good shots, though, and that one's a good example.
And Shea has been so effective all season and in this series when he's been able to post up. And is the zone in some way, taking some of those post ups either at the nail or on the wing or the block, taking those opportunities away?
I thought we attacked the zone well last night. They played a different zone. We knew coming into this series that they were going to throw a lot of different schemes, and they have. They've done a lot of different things game to game. I would expect them to stick with some of the stuff they did last night because it was pretty effective in the second half especially. But I thought the attacks against the zone were good. It was a different zone, like I said, and we kind of calibrated pretty quickly on it and got some advantages there. But to your point about the post-ups, late game, it's hard. It's just a tough area of the floor to play out of, especially if they're going to send doubles. So we prefer to have them more in the middle of the floor in those situations typically, but it's something that we'll look at, because if we're looking to try to shake him free in different situations, we got to look at everything.
The one for you guys is then something you strong suit for you.
Say the first part again.
The depth.
Yeah.
It's been strong suit for you guys all year. And hasn't really seemed that way in the playoffs. Guys are playing not as much as they were playing regular season. Has there been any reason to that, or is this because the way the games have been going, is that tougher to try and find minutes for these guys?
Yeah, I mean, I thought we leaned into that in game 2 for sure. I thought we leaned into it in the first half last night. And then I made a decision to extend the guys, in the fourth quarter last night. And then obviously overtime takes it up another couple minutes. So that's how you get guys, up in the 40s in the game. But still trying to introduce the same guys to the game and to the series because you never know. I mean, Jay Will's a great example. He played 3 minutes in the first game, and he's been a critical part of what we've done the last 2. So you never want to knock anybody out. You need everybody to stay engaged and stay ready because as the series evolves and shifts, it could mean you need different tools and different people, and the guys understand that. But to answer your question, I made the decision late to extend the guys that played the most minutes.
To the point of depth, I know it's not as simple as put Ido in a game and watch the 3-point percentage go up, but after he got those 2 quick fouls, why did he only play 3 minutes? Like what sort of answer?
It wasn't foul related. It was more rotation related. I thought about going back to him in the second quarter, decided to stick with Wiggins there. And like I said, in the second half, I just shortened everything, to try to go get the game. I liked how the guys were going. I liked how we were playing. But we're going to need him. I mean, he's obviously a guy we trust and a guy that's delivered for us in the past. So I wouldn't read too far into that, just like I wouldn't read into Jay Will. Like I said, he played 3 minutes in game 1 and he turns around, he's the first sub in game 2.
And it felt like you got the switches you wanted for Shea. Jamal's on him a lot of that fourth quarter. When you watch Dub's movement and his possessions, did you feel like you could have got him more favorable switches? Like what'd you see down the stretch when it looked better to State?
You guys asked about that last night. I thought, first of all, he had some times where he was the main creator on the possession, especially in overtime, and down the stretch. Also, some of the stuff that he got in the game was like in that secondary role. We had the offensive rebound. He hit the 3 on. We had the early pass out to him where he drove it and got fouled. So those guys have a great chemistry together. A lot of times we're pushing Shea's button mainly because of the way the defense is going to react to him. And we try to keep Dub in advantageous spots on the floor where if they're going to help in the easiest plays off Shea, they're doing it off a Dub. And so I thought we got to that a good amount last night. Like I said, the execution was not a 10 out of 10 on most possessions. But it wasn't a 0 either, and we just got to clean it up a little bit. But going back on it, I thought the buttons we pushed were pretty appropriate.
You've mentioned most of the series more. What's made Denver such a tough series early with the lead?
Say that one more time.
You've led for a majority of the series.
Yeah.
You've talked before about how hard it can be to play with the lead. What's made Denver specifically so tough to play against in that regard?
I don't know if it's specific to them. I mean, I think at the end of the day, we've played 2 games that have come down to 1 possession and that can go either way. And I thought game 1 was different. I thought that was a game we had a lead that they cut into and they came back and won the game. Last night, we led for parts of the game, but it never felt like we separated the game and got a firm grip on it the way we did in game 1. So I thought those games were different. Last night, I thought was just kind of a back and forth, brawl. And so every game's different, but they're a really good team. They're a really, really good offensive team. They played really good, really well defensively last night, and really competed in the game, as did we, and they were a couple plays better.
You mentioned them generating a lot of good ones from 3, and obviously you guys are defending Joker as well as I think anybody could imagine. Yet, how much of the generating threes is related to the attention you're paying Joker, and is that just something you have to live with, or is there stuff you can be better at in terms of getting back out to the shooters?
Yeah, I mean, some of it's cost of doing business, in terms of the way that we're going to guard him. He obviously requires a good amount of attention, and you're going to give something up when you do that. I thought last night their quality of threes last night was better than it's been. So some of those were not necessarily trade-off threes. Those ones you kind of live with. There were some that were like the Gordon one that Nick's talking about, that's a transition defense play where they just outnumber us on a missed basket. That's one where you're like, that's not Jokic related. That's just shot quality. In our internal numbers, we've shot better quality threes than our opponents in every playoff game until last night. They got better threes than we did last night. So we have to look at that on both ends of the floor. But the ones that are trade-offs are trade-offs, but the ones that aren't, that's why I talk about the fundamentals and the controllables. That's the stuff we definitely got to get on.